A reading from the Gospel of Luke. Jesus also told them a parable. Can a blind person guide a blind person? Will not both fall into a pit? A disciple is not above the teacher, but everyone who is fully qualified will be like the teacher. Why do you see the speck in your neighbour's eye, but do not notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your neighbour, "Friend, let me take out the speck in your eye," when you yourself do not see the log in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your neighbour's eye. When I was 15, the BBC produced a wonderful film version of the story of Dracula. It featured the Anglo-French actor Louis Jourdan, who was a sinister but also deliciously ironic vampire, and his performance made quite an impression on me. And funnily enough, I was reminded of it as I read those words of Jesus just now. Why are you trying to take the speck out of your neighbour's eye, and yet you don't see what's in your own eye? I was reminded of Dracula because in this rather delicious production, early on, when Jonathan Harker, the solicitor from the London law firm, has arrived at Count Dracula's castle, he's shaving in his room, and in comes the Count, who stands behind him. And suddenly, in a very disconcerting way, poor Harker realises that in his mirror there is no reflection of the vampire. Dracula sees his surprise, picks up the mirror, and before flinging it casually out of the window, says, "That's the trouble with mirrors, isn't it?" he said. "They never reflect quite enough." And that's sort of what Jesus is talking about in this passage, because he's calling us and all who follow him to make sure that we have a really good spiritual mirror. This parable, he also told them a parable, it started. This parable is Jesus' way of reinforcing his call in the previous verses that it's not up to us to judge. It is up to us to receive mercy and forgiveness. And if that's what we receive from God, and God knows that we need it, all of us, if that's what we receive from God, that is what we should be then offering to all those around us in the name of Christ. Don't judge. Accept mercy and accept forgiveness. Don't judge, says Jesus, because if you look properly in the mirror, then you will be reminded of what your own needs actually are, which are probably bigger than you had remembered, and probably ought to concern you more than those you believe are the needs of your neighbour. Jonathan Harker has the surprise of his life when he sees that the vampire Count Dracula casts no reflection, and Dracula shows him the limits to what you can achieve with a mirror. And the irony in all that, of course, is that Dracula stands before him as a form of species who will suck literally the lifeblood out of others around them. God calls us not to suck the life out of the world, but to play our part in sharing the life that comes from God, that abundant life which nothing can destroy. Let's make sure that we aren't vampires. Let's make sure that we have a good spiritual mirror which shows us all that we need to see. Let's not judge. Let's share the good news of mercy and forgiveness and the love of God. Amen.